at that. Look 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 at that. That is man the predator right there.
What?
Who thinks he's smarter than you?
What?
Who thinks he's smarter than you?
What?
All right, guys, let's actually go right to Joe Biden.
On the crisis involving Russia and Ukraine. From the beginning of this crisis, I have been absolutely clear and consistent. The United States is prepared no matter what happens. We are ready with diplomacy, to be engaged in diplomacy with Russia and our allies and partners to improve stability and security in Europe as a whole. And we are ready to respond decisively to Russian attack on Ukraine.
Wow.
Which is still very much a possibility.
Wow.
For all the events of the last few weeks and months, this has been our approach, and it remains our approach now. So today I want to speak to the American people about the situation on the ground,
Please.
the steps we've taken, the actions we're prepared to take, and what's at stake for us and the world.
Are we going to war?
And how this may impact on us here at home. For weeks now, together with our allies and partners, my administration has engaged in non-stop diplomacy. This weekend, I spoke again with President Putin to make clear that we are ready to keep pursuing high-level diplomacy, to reach written understandings among Russia, the United States, and the nations of Europe to address legitimate security concerns, if that's his wish. Their security concerns and ours. President Putin and I agreed that our team should continue to engage toward this end, along with our European allies and partners. Yesterday, the Russian government publicly proposed to continue the diplomacy. I agree. We should give the diplomacy every chance to succeed. And I believe there are real ways to address our respective security concerns. The United States has put on the table concrete ideas to establish a security environment in Europe. We're proposing new arms control measures, new transparency measures, new strategic stability measures. These measures would apply to all parties, NATO and Russia alike. And we're willing to make practical, result-oriented steps that can advance our common security. We will not sacrifice basic principles, though. Nations have a right to sovereignty and territorial integrity. They have the freedom to set their own course and choose with whom they will associate. But that still leaves plenty of room for diplomacy and for de-escalation.
Let's hope.
That's the best way forward for all parties, in our view. We'll continue our diplomatic efforts in close consultation with our allies and our partners. As long as there is hope of diplomatic resolution that prevents the use of force and avoids incredible human suffering that would follow, we will pursue it. The Russian defense minister reported today that some military units are leaving their positions near Ukraine. That would be good, but we have not yet verified that. We have not yet verified the Russian military units are returning to their home bases. Indeed, our analysts indicate that they remain very much in a threatening position. And the fact remains, right now, Russia has more than 150,000 troops encircling Ukraine and Belarus and along Ukraine's border. An invasion remains distinctly possible. That's why I've asked several times that all Americans in Ukraine leave now before it's too late to leave safely.
Wow.
It is why we have temporarily relocated our embassy from Kyiv to Lviv in western Ukraine, approaching the Polish border.
It's where my ancestors are from, the Lviv area.
And with the world about Russia's plans and the seriousness of the situation so that everyone can see for themselves what is happening. We've shared what we know and what we're doing about it. Let me be equally clear about what we are not doing. The United States and NATO are not a threat to Russia. Ukraine is not threatening Russia. Neither the U.S. nor NATO have missiles in Ukraine. We do not have plans to put them there as well. We're not targeting the people of Russia. We do not seek to destabilize Russia. To the citizens of Russia, you are not our enemy. And I do not believe you want a bloody, destructive war against Ukraine.
Whoa.
A country and a people with whom you share such deep ties of family, history, and culture. 77 years ago, our people fought and sacrificed side by side to end the worst war in history. World War II was a war of necessity. But if Russia attacks Ukraine, it would be a war of choice, or a war without cause or reason. I say these things not to provoke, but to speak the truth, because the truth matters. Accountability matters. If Russia does invade in the days and weeks ahead, the human cost for Ukraine will be immense. And the strategic cost for Russia will also be immense. If Russia attacks Ukraine, it will be met with overwhelming international condemnation. The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction. Invading Ukraine will prove to be a self-inflicted wound. The United States and our allies and partners will respond decisively. The West is united and galvanized. Today, our NATO allies and the alliance is as unified and determined as it has ever been. And the source of our unbreakable strength continues to be the power, resilience, and universal appeal of our shared democratic values. Because this is about more than just Russia and Ukraine. It's about standing for what we believe in, for the future we want for our world, for liberty, the right of countless countries to choose their own destiny, and the right of people to determine their own futures, for the principle that a country can't change its neighbors' borders by force. That's our vision. And toward that end, I'm confident that vision, that freedom will prevail. If Russia proceeds, we will rally the world to oppose its aggression. The United States and our allies and partners around the world are ready to impose powerful sanctions on export controls, including actions that we did not pursue when Russia invaded Crimea in eastern Ukraine in 2014. We put intense pressure on their largest and most significant financial institutions and key industries.
I guess he's saying it's not going to go like 2014 with Crimea.
As soon and if Russia moves. We'll impose long-term consequences that will undermine Russia's ability to compete economically and strategically. And when it comes to Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bring natural gas from Russia to Germany, if Russia further invades Ukraine, it will not happen.
Wow.
While I will not send American
Got to stick to it.
in Ukraine, we have supplied the Ukrainian military with equipment to help them defend themselves. We provided training and advice and intelligence for the same purpose. And make no mistake, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
Remember, Ukraine's not part of NATO.
Attack against one NATO country is attack against all of us. And the United States' commitment to Article 5 is sacrosanct. Already, in response to Russia's buildup of troops, I've sent additional U.S. forces to bolster NATO's eastern flank. Several of our allies have also announced they'll add forces and capabilities to ensure deterrence and defense along NATO's eastern flank. We will also continue to conduct military exercises with our allies and partners to enhance defensive readiness. And if Russia invades, we'll take further steps to reinforce our presence in NATO, reassure us for our allies, and deter further aggression. To be clear, if Russia decides to invade, that would also have consequences here at home. But the American people understand that defending democracy and liberty is never without cost.
Wow.
This is a cause that unites Republicans and Democrats. And I want to thank the leaders and members of Congress of both parties who've forcefully spoken out in defense of our most basic, most bipartisan, most American principles. I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices.
Uh-oh.
So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and offset raising prices.
Are markets going to crater these last 20 minutes of trading?
Consumers and producers are prepared to deploy all the tools and authority
they
at
already
our
are.
disposal to provide relief at the gas pump. And I'll work with Congress on additional measures to help protect consumers and address the impact of prices at the pump. We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine,
right here, look
we
at this.
will respond forcefully. And if Russia attacks the United States or our allies through asymmetric means, like disruptive cyber attacks against our companies or critical infrastructure, we are prepared to respond. But we're moving in lockstep with our NATO allies and partners to deepen our collective defense against threats in cyberspace. Two paths are still open. For the sake of historic responsibility, Russia and the United States share for global stability, for the sake of our common future, to choose diplomacy. But let there be no doubt. If Russia commits this breach by invading Ukraine, responsible nations around the world will not hesitate to respond. We do not stand for freedom where it is at risk today, will surely pay a steeper price tomorrow. Thank you. I'll keep you informed.
Mr. President, whether or not they are de-escalating.
Ukraine as a precursor to a Russian invasion.
Okay, so this is not actually today's main event. There's a press briefing starting in 18 minutes, and that's really the main event. Okay, so stay with us because that is starting momentarily. And at that point, there are going to be all sorts of questions asked about what we just heard and what is potentially on the table here. Okay, so we're going to be watching all of that very, very closely. I will take, this is all live, guys. Yes, we are live. I am going to take your super chats, which will pop up on the screen over there if they are sent. We are going to be reviewing and looking at so many things. I have so much to catch up on with you and talk a little bit about the week ahead and really the couple weeks ahead. This is really, now I am going to try to avoid brain dead takes on this live stream. And if you guys will permit me to do so, I will do everything I can to avoid brain dead takes. So let me first point out the following. One can simultaneously believe Putin is the aggressor here and that we don't want the United States getting involved and that we don't want to send troops to Ukraine, which Biden just said he would not do. Wow. That's possible? Yes. Just because you say Putin is clearly the aggressor here doesn't mean you are some kind of, imperialist or whatever, right?
Globalist, internationalist, Trotskyite socialists, unlike Obama, Trudeau, Macron,
Right.
and the rest of these Zio beasts.
Right. So, it's sort of like, I've talked to you guys before about these people where you go, hey, what's happening with the Uyghurs in China? That's terrible. It's terrible authoritarianism. And someone goes, the F are you talking about? The U.S. thought about killing Castro in the 60s. What? Yeah, and then I would have been against that if I was alive. And what? Am I in some kind of fantasy world here? Hey, I really don't like the way that the Maduro regime uses populist rhetoric, but actually takes all of the spoils available from Venezuelan oil and people live in abject poverty. Yeah, but David, do you know what the U.S. tried to do in Nicaragua? What? Please, guys, we're not going to do it. This is not the channel for you. Okay. If those are the takes you want, there's probably someone that'll ladle feed it to you. It's just not this channel. It's just not this channel. Okay. We're not going to do it. All right. Super chats. No, none. All right. Very good. We're standing by for a White House press briefing. Certainly questions are going to be asked about all of this. Let me just see here. I want to find a backup stream, very, very powerful backup stream. What do we have here? Let me filter by live. And I have so much to talk about, guys. So please don't think that we're going to miss any of it. Okay, I guess this is sort of like the stream right now. Okay, so we're standing by for the White House press briefing. I want to say a huge thank you to Guitar Goddess, Stuck a Duck, Jen here, Sterling Lana, and the great Nug Wrangler for their Twitch Prime subscriptions. Nug Wrangler now 29 consecutive months. Also, thanks to the Sarcasm Fairy for the Twitch Prime subscription. And lastly, a huge thank you to Marvin Giles, who just signed up on my website, joinpacman.com. And remember, you can use the coupon code OBAMNA on my website to sign up at an ungodly discount. I mean, just absolutely ungodly what is being offered there. Okay, let's get to some other things because I just have so much to talk about. Let's do the Dave Ramsey thing, okay? I've told you guys, some of you guys have gotten pulled in by Dave Ramsey into thinking that he's someone to listen to on financial advice. My position on Dave Ramsey has been, he will sometimes stumble across completely uncontroversial and reasonable financial advice, but it's all wrapped up in cuckoo Christianity. And here's an example that was sent to me of why Dave Ramsey is not a guy to get financial advice from.
And so this thing from the communist and socialist college professors that have taught everyone that capitalism is...
Check, please. I'm out. That's it. That's enough. That's enough. You know, go to someone else, guys. Go to someone else. But we'll listen to a little bit more.
Evil has got to stop because it's accurate. It's inaccurate biblically. It's inaccurate in truth. There are wonderful companies that are for profit that do a great job. Again, not saying that there's anything wrong with doing a not for profit. I've got a good friend, Craig Groeschel, Bobby Grunwald over at Life Church. Life Church is a not-profit, and they have the largest Bible app, one of the largest apps of all of Apple.
Oh my God.
Everyone's got it.
Now, let me give you guys an alternative. Now, I'm going to make something really clear here, okay? If you're interested in content that is related to finance and business and has a different religious bent, like, okay, so I know a lot of you want your financial advice without religious elements, and I can recommend to you endless newsletters. I mean, get yourself on, hold on, let me actually look here. Get yourself on Barry Ritholtz's newsletter. Get yourself on Nick Majuli's newsletter. Get yourself on Ben Carson's news. There's so many economics and finance newsletters that are really, really great stuff. But I also want to say, if you like the approach of mixing the personal finance and business stuff with religion, I have an alternative channel for you, which I think is endlessly superior to Dave Ramsey. Now, some of you are going to say, well, David, of course, you're Jewish, so of course you could recommend this. I'm an atheist Jew, okay? For me, Orthodox Judaism doesn't really give me anything, but there's actually a legitimately good channel called Living L'Chaim that does really interesting interviews. It's openly an Orthodox Jewish channel, okay? And endlessly fascinating content. They just did this stream with Andrew Singer, who is a Fortune 100 executive. Check this out. This is actually really interesting stuff. I'll just give you like 30 seconds, okay?
His suggestion, and I have my people use this, is something of the following.
So this is on job interview techniques, and it's fantastic.
Something that usually said, just got off the Traders Update. Very interesting mention of your market. Call me. Or just ended with Traders. Something very important about your account.
These are actually sales techniques.
Please take a look. Or something like that. It's something that basically is very immediate, very real. It has to be real, and take somebody's attention because it hits them financially. So in my business, people buy electricity. The price of electricity changes all the time. People
Okay,
are
anyway, I'm not going to bore you guys with this, but my point is, if you said to me, hey, David, can you recommend a religiously oriented finance and economics channel on YouTube? even in that category, it's not Dave Ramsey. It's not Dave Ramsey. The stuff on this channel is absolutely fantastic. The other episode that's really interesting on this channel, actually, I can't even find it. Okay, it doesn't even matter. But the whole point is the Dave Ramsey stuff, it's very bad. It's very, very bad. And there's really interesting resources and other things that that people can look at. Okay. Let me see what else. Where do I want to go next? Did I miss any super chats? No, sadly, no super chats today. A lot of people are very, very close to getting banned. I want to say thanks to Tinda Eseldarine and Al E for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. Thank you very much. Truly, truly appreciate that. I have so many voicemails for you guys. I have a new voicemail character. This is a guy who is leaving weaponized voicemail after weaponized voicemail. I'm just going to play one for you, but this is a new guy, and just take a listen.
David Pac-Man, this is Billy Harrison again, one of your, as you said I was the most chaotic caller because you heard a child cooing, a 4-month-old child cooing in the background, and a 2-year-old playing with his remote control car. Yeah, it's real chaotic, but as we call it, that's life, normal. But anyways, I want you to play this voicemail clip on there.
Right, I'm doing it.
And I mean this, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but why are people on the left so stupid?
Right. Stupid.
I mean, explain it.
Right.
Y'all can't debunk anything that Donald Trump says. Y'all can't present real facts. All y'all do is point out, well, he pronounced that word wrong, or he didn't put a comma here when he was supposed to put a comma there, and this, that, and the third, like, point out stupid shit.
Right. Yes, Trump flushing documents down a toilet and it getting clogged because he's flushing so many documents, that's like a technicality. That's equivalent to a comma. It's very, very, it's petty.
Instead of actual, shit that's worth talking about. Like, I mean, I was watching.
Okay. Anyway, that's fine. Shade Williams says here, so you no longer have to say no super chats today. Thank you very much. And let me even adjust that. There we go. I appreciate that. It was getting very sad from the standpoint of super chats. All right, we're going to get back to the voicemails because I have so many other things to talk about with you guys. I have a new song, but I have it only via audio. William J did this. What I want to ask you guys is if anybody wants to make a video element to this, I will send you the track. Now, please, if you want the audio track to make a video remix of this, email info@davidpacman.com. Don't just email us asking for the track if you don't really plan to do a video, because our email box is going to get flooded. Here is the audio that was submitted. I think this would be great for someone to actually do a music video. Here is the new song. This is called Elements of Bathrooms.
Trump was doing this with his personal toilet.
But sinks, toilets, and showers.
Elements of bathrooms.
10 times, 15 times.
Right.
Elements of bathrooms.
We're looking very strongly at sinks and showers.
Elements of bathrooms.
10 times, 15 times.
Elements of bathrooms.
What on earth is going on with Trump and toilets? Trump's White House toilet would be clogged. Clogged. With documents that Donald Trump was flushing down the toilet.
Right.
Is this the explanation?
Big, massive dumps.
Elements of bathrooms.
Okay. Anyway, you guys get the idea. So that is ripe for a music video. And if anybody wants the original high quality audio, please email info@davidpacman.com and we will get it to you. Okay. Poustain Pete says, David, sir, the FBI just raided my home. Zero evidence it wasn't because I used your coupon code. Please advise. I'd get a lawyer. Fool in the Rain says, David, I sent one. Please check again. Thank you. Leedy Lobotomy says elements of bathrooms. Yes, that is really quite a song. Really, really quite a song. Okay, so we've gotten that. Let's see what else I have here for everybody. Oh, Anthony Weiner was on Hannity last night alongside Curtis Sliwa. And Hannity asked Weiner whether he changed after serving time. And Hannity doesn't really seem to like Weiner's answer. It's all very strange.
I guess the first question that I have is, you pled guilty, Anthony, to sending obscene materials to a young girl, a 15-year-old girl. You pled guilty.
Right.
You served jail time. Have you changed? Are you a different person?
Well, I think so. I don't think anyone can go through that kind of experience, and I think this is probably true of people who have been through other types of adversity. I don't think you go through that type of experience and don't emerge changed.
Well, right. But Anthony, wait a minute.
So I think it's fairly obvious.
That's an obscure answer. I think so. Either you know in your heart if you changed, or you know in your heart if you didn't change.
Right.
Can you assure people, because you're going to...
Why does it matter?
Now try and draw in an audience, and they're going to want
he just has a radio show. Does it really matter? I mean,
know if you changed or not. Have you changed?
They can judge for themselves.
I'm sorry?
I said they can judge for themselves. I'm not out to persuade you or anyone else that I've changed. I mean, I'm doing a radio show, and people can call in and ask me questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you're not... He's not teaching your kids, it's like, okay, I mean, if you don't, then don't listen to the show. I don't know. He's just doing a radio show. That's all.
We did one this past Saturday where people had an opportunity to call in, and where Curtis asked me a bunch of questions, and I asked him to answer the best I can. But in terms of I'm trying to draw someone in, no, I'm not trying to make someone like me or someone be persuaded of any particular outlook on me. We're going to have some conversations about things going on in New York City and other places, and hopefully people will tune into the show, but I'm not terribly interested in trying to make them feel any differently about me.
Yeah, it's like, it's all very weird. It's like, dude, Hannity, what are you talking about, man? It's all very strange. We are heading rapidly towards Joe Biden's State of the Union address. That's going to be on March 1st. I am really looking forward to you all joining me for that. We will be live 1 hour before the State of the Union address. That is now in exactly 2 weeks. We'll be streaming. I am looking very strongly at doing Biden bingo. I think if you have ideas for Biden bingo, you can email them in. I think we'll definitely have Not a Joke on there. Maybe Malarkey would be on there. Give Me a Break would probably be there. Probably that throat clearing he does will be on there as well. Whispering will be on there. The term folks, Jack, a story about, what is like quoting his dad would probably be on there. He'll often go like, my dad used to say, Joey, how many, I don't even know. So it'll be Biden. We'll have Biden bingo. I look forward to everybody joining me on March 1st. That's going to be good. I do want to say thank you to Sorceress Supreme, who just signed up on my website, joinpacman.com, with the coupon code OBAMNA. And his new member number 10 today. Grab those memberships. Joinpacman.com is the place to do it. People wanting one more, whatever this guy's name is, Billy Graham or something like that voicemail. Here, I'll play one more for you. Let's listen. This guy's calling almost as frequently as Whitney now.
David Pacman, Billy Harrison again.
Billy Harrison.
Like I said, man, I think that was
some bullshit.
Actually, some Democratic shit. Call somebody kid because they're cooing and laughing and talking.
Man, I don't even know what he's talking about.
That's delusional.
Yeah, I have no clue what he's talking about. Benjamin says via Super Chat, David, sir, will you flee the country after a massive dump of democracy? Just kidding. Love the show. Keep it up. Yeah. Biggest mistake I've made on the show is, and did you guys know about this? Someone called in and just said like, hey, David, if you ever decided to leave the country, where would you go? That was the question. Just like if you if you decided that, where would you go? And it led to about 3 weeks of me being called a Jew traitor who was going to take my capital and loyalties elsewhere. It was nuts, just crazy. From just like, hey, like if you left, where would you go, man?
And we will ban men.
Yeah, well, if that happened, we would be looking at it very closely. Okay, a couple of people, it came to my attention through something I posted on Twitter that many of you are not familiar with I'm Not Gay No More. This is one of the most viral mimetic elements in the history of political media. I'm going to play it for you so everybody becomes familiar with it. The story here is from a church, a Christian church of some kind, where a guy proclaimed that he was no longer gay thanks to God. And it was like it's a crazy thing. You just have to see it to believe it. This is it.
Yoke. Break every yoke. He's delivering you now. Whatever it is,
This is the best.
you need God to do, he just told you it's done right now. What did you come here for? What did you come down here for? Tell me. To get delivered more. To get delivered. Do you believe that the Lord tonight has set you free? Yes, sir. Turn around and tell those people.
This is the best.
Tell them. I'm not gay no more. I am delivered.
Turns out he's still gay. He later did an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, and he's like, I'm gay. I'm gay.
I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women.
The destructive power of the church.
I said women. I'm not gay. I would not date a man. I would not carry a purse. I would not.
One of my favorite things of the video is the guys in suits in the background high-fiving and slapping each other on the back as this is going on.
Makeup. I will love a woman. Now listen, what? Y'all praise God with him.
Right.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold just 1 minute. Now either you gonna believe this stuff or you ought to stop preaching it.
Yes, I do not believe it. The guy is gay. He later said, I'm gay. I'm not dating any women.
If you can't praise God with him, you're an unbeliever.
Right.
Now somebody believe God with him.
Here we go. Really like a second line sort of drumming feel there. New Orleans style.
Don't just preach condemnation. We preach reconciliation.
This is a celebration that the guy's not gay anymore, if you can understand the incredible healing power of this church.
Hallelujah. God, help him, Lord. Help him, Lord. Help.
This place is tax exempt, by the way. You guys know that, right?
Here.
Yeah, we
I got
know.
a problem. I got to get out of here.
We know.
Because I got to get up early, too, and put that long robe on. I got a problem, though.
What?
It still looks like he's alone.
Well, that's not the only issue you're going to have in a few days later, it turns out.
And whether you know it or not, the devil ain't going to leave him alone. I wish I had some shown-up believers that'll come down here and dance with him and tell him, right, you can do it in the name of Jesus.
He's like, now that this guy has announced I've cured him of being gay, please send men to dance with him to the front of the church. Not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously. There you go.
Hey! That's right.
Quite a celebration of heterosexuality, as you can see. Man. Okay, anyway, so that guy is no longer gay, but a few days later he was on with Jimmy Kimmel and he was like, I'm gay. I'm a gay guy. That was it. didn't make any sense. Meg says, David, sir, your sarcastic terrorism against the right is one of the few bright spots in this capitalist hellscape. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Meg. I don't totally know what you mean, but I really appreciate it. It's a very nice message. Thank you. We're standing by for Jen Psaki here. Couple of other things for you guys. Here is Dave Rubin, who is Jewish, nominally at least, comparing the unvaccinated to the way the Jews were seen in the lead up to the Holocaust. This is, some people are like, oh, well, you know, he would know because he's Jewish. No. It makes it all the more gross. Here's Dave Rubin.
I just said to my guys as we were playing this, it's truly incredible watching these people flip the story and how they reverse everything they say about one thing when it's their guys doing it versus how they say it when it's the other guys doing it. First off, I just want to say something very, very clearly here.
Please.
I lost family members on both sides of the Holocaust, okay? I grew up around Holocaust survivors.
What does it mean on both sides of the Holocaust? That's weird.
I am well versed in what the Holocaust was and what the demonization of people is. Although the guy who was interviewed there, and by the way, great cherry picking on that Daily Show, and then they cherry pick that on the Daily Show, and then of course they throw that to CNN because they're all in on it together. I believe they're both owned by Viacom. It's
big conspiracy.
It's one big circle jerk in essence. Regardless of what the guy said, whether you think he said it in a butchered way or he shouldn't say it or something like that, the way something like the Holocaust starts is you otherize people, right? You keep otherizing them. You say, oh, you can't be part of the economy. You can't own a store. You can't do this. We're going to demonize you. You're diseased. So it is not a giant leap, okay? It really is not, and I don't care how much hate I get for this. It is not a giant leap after 2 years of demonizing certain people who wanted choice, medical choice, and choice used to be thought of as a good thing, to compare them to the Jews before the Holocaust.
Oh my God. I think he has mayonnaise in his brain. You know, the funny thing about this is all of this is based on fears of a slippery slope. It's one of the key, we're actually going to be speaking with Seth Moskowitz. I told you guys about this great article about, I think it's called The Reactionary Trap. Hold on, The Reactionary Trap, Seth Moskowitz. Yeah, here it is. I could not recommend an article to you more highly than this article here by Seth Moskowitz called The Reactionary Trap. And it explains reactionary tendencies on the right and on the left. And one of the fundamental things about this reactionary movement, we're not missing Jen Psaki, so everybody relax. One of the big things is you have to sow fear. And one of the easiest ways to sow fear is to make people afraid of slippery slopes. Well, this is the first step, and then it's going to be this, and then it's going to be this, and then it's going to be this. It has not happened with the vaccines. I mean, go back to the first vaccine requirements, 1903, 1905, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they were saying then the next thing you know, and it never happened. It's been 119 years, and then there were just vaccine requirements for other vaccines, and then for other vaccines, and there was no slippery slope. In the middle of it, for completely unrelated reasons, in Germany, you had Hitler. And it has nothing to do with vaccine mandates. And this is how they prey on people. And it's a very effective rhetorical tool to pull people into this reactionary fear-based thinking to talk about slippery slopes when there are none. And many things have gotten worse in the United States over time, right? The slippery slope of cutting taxes on the rich has led to record inequality. That's real. That's a real slippery slope. But this is just nonsense. And, you know, the fact that Rubin is Jewish doesn't make him any more credible. It makes this all the more sad. Some private business is saying you got to be vaccinated or you got to be vaccinated to come over to the border or whatever. That is nothing like the Holocaust. It is nothing like the Jews before the Holocaust. Nothing. And it's completely irresponsible that Rubin is doing this. I want to say thank you to Mark Pittman. Mark just signed up on my website with the coupon code OBAMNA. And his new member number 11. I would love it if you signed up on my website. You can use that same coupon code OBAMNA. Also, a great day to re-up your Twitch Prime subscriptions. If you have Amazon Prime, you can do that for free. The article is called The Reactionary Trap. Here's the article. Just search for The Reactionary Trap, Seth Moskowitz. It's not a very long read. And it is very, very good. Really. And he's going to be on the show. He's traveling right now, but we're going to have him on in April to talk about the article and the entire concept. Okay, a check on the markets. No, they did okay. Markets collapsed a little right when Biden started speaking. It was this little dip, but it ended up with sort of like a nice day. And that's it. We don't have to follow the markets too much day to day, but that gets us out of the way with that. Okay, we played the voicemail that we had. Let me continue on with a couple of other things. Oh, no, this we already did. Okay, next. Mike Pillow has really been having a tough go of it. Number one, his bank canceled him for reputational risk. They canceled him. He lost his bank. Two, he went on a very strange rant on Lindell TV a few days ago about how Fox, he's going to try to hack Fox now, I guess. It's very weird. Take a look at this.
Trolls that are on my Facebook and they go, there's no evidence, Mike, give it up. Just go over to Lindell TV and go to the Lindell TV too.
Like he's completely disheveled. I mean, it's just everything about this video is bizarre.
And you're going to see Garland on there pouring out the evidence from Georgia. And then, it won't be funny? Because then
he doesn't look sober, but I guess he is sober, supposedly.
When Fox says we're all American, when Fox calls the United States of America, all the people liars, and our great president Donald Trump a liar, we say, well, Fox, here, why don't you run this tape on your show instead of Sean Hannity and run it and then watch the stuff come out? Maybe we should get...
Anybody understanding what he's talking about here? Anybody know? Sort of like a God bless the United States moment. Do I even have that? Let me see here.
And God bless the United States.
Our cyber guys, Brandon, that looked at all the evidence to hook up our stream to Fox's, he
and Sean Hannity are going to be crossing streams, hooking them up.
Like they all attack Lindell TV all the time. We can attack. Can you imagine? This is Sean Hannity all of a sudden. Breaking news right out of Georgia. We can't even put the evidence pouring in, Arizona, pouring in, Wisconsin. And Fox you'd have the Murdochs going, oh no, what are we going to do? The truth is out. We're the liars.
Pretty sick guy, right? I mean, it's like very, very strange stuff. Then here's another report from earlier today. Apparently Pillow is sending pillows to the truckers in Canada, and there's some issue there as well.
Liz, you've got a live shot of what it looks like here at Port Huron here in Michigan. This is one of the entry points to Canada, and you got this big 53-foot My Pillow truck all loaded up with about 10,000 pillows, just awaiting the permits to cross over this bridge. Let me pan the camera over to our left, your right. You'll see the entry point.
Did that guy just snort? That was weird.
The permits to cross over this bridge. Let me pan the camera over to our left, your right.
It did sound like a pig snort there for a second. That was a weird noise.
Right, you'll see the entry point right there. The blue truck there, you can see it. Generally, it takes only just a few seconds, really, as the trucks pull up. They give the paperwork's given back to them, and they're on their way. Now, we've been out here for a couple hours just kind of watching the traffic across the...
All right, so apparently a pillow truck having issues, and then here he was yesterday on the Steve Bannon show. Tell me if you can understand what he's talking about here.
Well, Arizona, that was over a week ago now. They've got quite a few representatives and senators that signed on. We're getting more and more every day. I was in Wisconsin, and all they need there, I was over there with the great Tim Rampin. He is the senator that put the bill before has it ready to decertify Wisconsin.
Now, you guys know that decertification isn't a thing, right? Do people in the audience understand this whole... They're getting ready to decertify from 15 months ago. There's about 3 different layers here. First of all, there is no such decertification process, number one. Number two, even if a state invented a decertification and called Washington, D.C. and was like, hey, we've decertified, there's no process for taking away electoral votes 15 months later. I mean, there's just no process for that. You guys know that, I'm sure.
It was an amazing event. I was there 5 hours. I planned on being there for a half hour, but there's Wisconsin, they're all over Wisconsin go, hey, we have the evidence. Let's get this decertified. I met some other senators and representatives, Steve. They're this close to getting on board. I believe we can get them all to jump on together because a lot of them still live in fear. They're going, fear, or they're not. They were very, a lot of them, just to be educated on this, that a lot of them said, well, there's nothing that can be done anyway.
Right.
Absolutely there can be done that. We've had lawyers, constitutional lawyers, look at this. 3 of these states you decertify, and then it goes back to all the states, and it votes one person or one state, one vote.
No, that's not that literally doesn't happen. There is no decertification process, and even if you did, nothing happens. There's no process for that. Can you imagine? Imagine if California calls and goes, "Hey, we're decertifying," and then they go, "Oh, cancel the election. We'll do one state, one vote, and each state gets to get." Of course not. Of course not.
And it's Republican controlled. So this is very real, and it's manifesting, it's coming to fruition, and it's going to happen, Steve. I will not quit until we get this done.
Okay, here's my question to you guys. How many of you think Pillow believes what he's saying? Is he serious or is he not? I'm starting to wonder whether he could really believe this crap, because it does not. Who could really believe this? Wow, a lot of you guys say he's serious. That's wild. That's really scary. Yeah, let's do a poll. Okay, let me set this up one at a time. First, let me do the one on Twitch. Does Mike Pillow really believe his decertification nonsense? And the answers will be yes or no. So we'll start that. And then we'll do it on YouTube as well. Yes, no. As we stand by here for Jen Psaki. Let's see. Over on Twitch, wow, 75% of you believe he really does believe it. Now almost 80%. Over on YouTube, about 75 as well. No, okay. I really can't tell at this point. I really can't tell. It's truly bizarre. Still about 80% on Twitch, 75% on YouTube. Yeah. I know it's very difficult to tell. Thank you to Chronically Steph as well as Drewish for the Twitch Prime subscriptions, numbers 12 and 13. Also, thank you and welcome to Pablo Lujan, who just signed up on my website with the coupon code Obamna. Really, really appreciate that. I'll open phone lines if we get to 100. Re-up your Twitch Prime subscription, sign up on my website, joinpacman.com. We'll open phone lines after Jen Psaki, and I'll speak to some of you. Oh, also thanks to Sterling's Kitchen for the Twitch Prime subscription. Very, very good. We have started. Oh, how is Rumble going? Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. Hold on. Let's take a look at that. As many of you know, we are now on the right-wing platform Rumble. We got our first 736 subscribers. It's funny because most of the people commenting are our viewers, leaving like trolling comments. Oh,
hi everyone.
Here we go.
Okay, I have 2 items for all of you at the top. Today we have some exciting updates on our competition agenda. First, we have progress on our administration's effort to lower the price of internet for millions of Americans. I bet you there are people who once lived in apartments, or still do, in this room, who will love this if you haven't already seen it.
I love
Today,
internet.
the FCC announced important steps to increase competition in the market for high-speed internet, which President Biden requested in his executive order on competition. As some of you may know, the landlord, if you live in an apartment, sometimes requires you to purchase internet service from one source. And today, the FCC voted on a bipartisan, unanimous basis to crack down on exclusivity agreements between landlords and internet providers, known as sweetheart deals, which lock tenants in apartments and office buildings into just one option for internet. That might be good for the landlord, landlord and for the internet service provider, but bad for tenants, bad for the American people, bad for people living in apartment buildings who may have to pay more and accept lower quality service. More than a third of Americans live in apartments and condos, and many businesses operate in multi-tenant buildings like office buildings or malls. So this is a sweeping problem the FCC is starting to fix today. And second, a competition update that is relevant for our national security. Today, the Department of Defense released a new report required by the President's competition executive order, explaining that new actions to promote competition in defense contracting. This report details that since the 1990s, the number of aerospace and defense prime contractors has shrunk from 51 to just 5. That consolidation means taxpayers have to pay more for defense services, and it threatens our national security. Strengthened merger oversight is one of the 5 actions the Defense Department is taking to address the problem. We've already seen concrete progress on that front this week. On Sunday, the FTC successfully blocked Lockheed Martin's $4 billion attempt to acquire Aerojet, a proposed mega merger of major defense suppliers. The FTC had filed a lawsuit explaining that the merger would jack up the price the U.S. government has to pay while delivering lower quality and less innovation. Also wanted to note, last item from me at the top is we're thrilled the Senate did its job today and confirmed the renowned clinical trialist Dr. Robert Califf once again to the job of FDA Commissioner, and once again on a bipartisan basis. He brings to this critical post a lifetime of knowledge and the institutional experience that will ensure he hits the ground running and is guided by the science on critical missions facing the FDA, from continuing to lead the fight against COVID-19 to combating the opioid crisis to ensuring the safety of our nation's food supply.
Someone's telling me Destiny recently called me racist. If anyone can email that clip to info@davidpakman.com if it's real, we'll look at it after this.
Gasoline prices are up 20 cents a gallon over the last 30 days on average. Is the president saying that if people are paying more at the pump, that is essentially a direct result of Vladimir Putin's actions, and he is to blame for the current burst we've seen in higher prices?
Well, the president wasn't making a market assessment or how the market moves. What he was conveying very, very clearly to the American public is that if Russia were to invade and we were to put in place crippling sanctions, that would have consequences or an impact here at home. So I know that wasn't exactly how you were asking the question, but that was what he was conveying in his answer. In terms of the price of gasoline, what we've seen is we know back in December, it went down by about 10 cents thanks to tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, something where there's still releases that have been ongoing. The president also made clear in his remarks that he is open to all options are on the table to help bring down the price of gasoline. But he wasn't making a market assessment. He was just making clear to the public that if Russia invades and we put in place crippling sanctions, that would have an impact on the public.
And then secondly, on Ukraine, the president talked about diplomatic efforts.
Yeah.
Could you go into more detail on what those diplomatic efforts could be? Is this going to be more U.S. interaction? Could there be a face-to-face meeting with Putin? And then how would you define success under diplomacy? Is it as simple as no invasion, or are there broader goals you're looking for, given that everything is now on the table, or more things are on the table?
Sure. Well, on the first part, you may have seen or not that our Secretary of State spoke with Foreign Minister Lavrov earlier today. The President spoke with President Macron earlier today as well. I think the readout just went out to all of you, or it should be in your inboxes as well. And what he means by ongoing diplomacy is that it will continue at the pace and urgency that you have seen from him over the last several weeks and from his team. And some of it will come from the president, some will come from high-level members of his national security team, and some of it will come from our European partners or NATO allies, who we remain in very close contact with. In terms of engagement with President Putin, as you know, he spoke with him on Saturday, and he believes in the power of leader-to-leader diplomacy, but I don't have a prediction of a next engagement at this point in time.
And what about
sorry.
define success?
I didn't get to that last part of your question. We define success is, I think, how a lot of our European partners and NATO allies would define it, which would be a de-escalation, a proven de-escalation at the border of Ukraine, where the Russians are pulling back their troops, where they are making clear to the global community, to the media, to the public, that they are not invading Ukraine and backing that up with actions. Go ahead.
I think, Jen, following up on this energy question, in terms of the impact on our energy, which the president mentioned, and then the consequences here at home, what should Americans be prepared for?
Yes, many of you pointing out DC is dropping their indoor mask mandate soon. I don't know how that will affect the press briefing room.
Was the fact that if Russia decides to invade, there could be consequences here at home, and that could have an impact on energy prices, which could have an impact on prices at the gas pump. And while we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets, and every option is on the table to offset rising prices. As you saw the president act last fall, range of options remain on the table. He also wanted to be very clear and direct with the American people about what the impact could be, and the fact that in his view, defending democracy and liberty is never without cost, but we need to convey to the American people exactly what that could look like.
One more on Russia. If President Putin decides not to invade, does President Biden consider that a victory?
I think the global community would consider that a victory. But again, I think what the president's view is and what the national security team's view is that this is ultimately up to President Putin. And every step we've taken up to date over the last weeks and even months to coordinate with our NATO allies, to stay in close touch with leaders in Congress and members about what our plans are, to put together a crippling sanctions package. What we are doing is we're presenting the choice to President Putin. He ultimately is going to decide which path he chooses. Go ahead.
Jen, I just wanted to close the loop on a few things. So the Ukraine has been experiencing a number of cyber attacks today. A number of its banks were affected. The defense ministry was affected. Has the United States attributed those attacks to Russia?
I don't have anything on the attribution at this point in time. I know there have been a range of reports. What I can say is that we have been in touch with the Ukrainians, our allies and partners, working with them to deter and respond to malicious cyber activity. We have also been warning for weeks and months, both publicly and in our engagements with the Ukrainians as well as our European partners, about the potential for Russia to conduct cyber operations in Ukraine, but I don't have anything more specific on attribution at this point.
Okay, and just, kind of moving a little bit into the realm of the hypothetical, there are a lot of steps that...
Oh, boy.
I know. There are a lot of steps that Russia could take that are short of an invasion, but that are still, aggressive.
Yeah.
Including cyber, including there's this step that their Congress has taken on recognizing these breakaway regions in Ukraine.
I wore one of these duckbill masks the other day. It was handed to me. I could barely get it over my head. You see that double strap? I had such technical trouble with it.
It's like that with sanctions as you would to, an actual invasion.
We have conveyed before, and I'll reiterate now, that we would be prepared to respond
It's a weird
with a
mask.
range of malicious activities or actions that the Russians were to take.
Okay, and then one more thing. I know that...
I guess the point of it is that it kind of like, it doesn't move when you talk, so it's like good for talking.
The German chancellor said today that Ukraine joining NATO is simply not on the table. It's not on an agenda item right now. Is that how you would characterize it from the White House?
Well, I think as you've heard the president convey, and you just heard him convey in his remarks, our view from the United States is that nations have the right to sovereignty, to territorial integrity, freedom to set their own course and choose who they associate with. So we, the United States, we're never going to pressure Ukraine or any country to join or not join a global alliance. That is up to them and up to the other members of NATO. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Just, you say all options are on the table. Let's be more specific on the possibility of a gas tax holiday. Would the White House support doing that?
I have nothing to predict for you at this point, but all options remain on the table.
He said in his speech, if Russia attacks Americans in Ukraine, we will respond. Is there specific intelligence suggesting that some kind of targeted attack on Americans in Ukraine is possible?
I don't think he was suggesting that. I think as we've conveyed, as we've warned and been very clear about the risks that would be posed to anyone who's in Ukraine, including American citizens, were Russia to invade, one of the biggest militaries in the world, that there would be serious risk to civilians. That's, I think, what he was conveying.
And with the Ukrainian president slated to be out of his country this weekend to go to the Munich Security Conference, do you guys think that's a good idea for him to be gone right now?
I don't think we have an assessment on that from here. Obviously, the Munich Security Conference is an opportunity for any leader to engage with, communicate with other leaders in the world, and obviously the vice president is going, as you know.
He's got a busy day, obviously, with Ukraine, but has the president talked to any Supreme Court nominee? Have any interviews been scheduled? Will they
I'm going
happen
to
in person?
disappoint you here, Ed, and just convey that I think we're not going to give day-to-day updates from here moving forward about whether or not he's done interviews. What I can confirm for you is we're still on track to for the president to make a decision and make an announcement before the end of the month, which is in 2 weeks.
We file that under the guy.
He will do some interviews in the next 2 weeks. That's what I can confirm for you. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks, Jen. We've been told for a long time that some cyber attacks would likely precede an invasion. So if it turns out that Russia is behind what happened today, or is, I guess how I should phrase it is there work being done quickly to figure out if Russia is behind what happened today so that sanctions can be imposed before there is bloodshed?
Good
or is
question.
the calculus still sort of centering on force on force or some passing over the
Sure. Well, we are constantly doing those assessments, and certainly as any cyber attack happens, that is certainly a process that happens behind the scenes and that our intelligence community and our national security community undertakes, as it would be in this case as well. I would note, though, as it relates to sanctions, one, there's a range of means that we could respond, both seen and unseen, so it's to a cyber attack or any other attack, and the president has the purview to do whatever he chooses in that regard. But our view remains that the crippling package of sanctions is an effective deterrent. So if you do that all in advance, what is to stop them from moving forward? Now, that may be a different of policy issue, different as of opinion, I should say, on policy issues with some in Congress, and that's okay, but that is our view from the administration.
And then this may or may not be related at all, but is there any information on what caused the power outage on the North Lawn? I mean, every TV network lost power at the same time during
It was a very inconvenient time, I will just note for all of you and for us. I don't have any assessment of that, no, or yes.
And
Go
then
ahead.
does the White House view Ukraine giving up on NATO aspirations as a possible off-ramp? Understand that the president has said, the administration has said over and over that NATO members would not encourage or would not give up that ability for someone else to join, but they do have a long way to go. And now that there's all of this concern that if there was a member, if they did become members, it could potentially trigger Article 5. Is there any discussion among NATO allies about how significant it would be if Zielinski were to make that offer himself?
Well, we have not raised that from the United States. And again, I would reiterate what I said a little bit earlier, which is that our position is that we are not going to pressure Ukraine or any country to join or not join an alliance, that it is nations have the right to sovereignty and territorial integrity, and that's a choice for them to make.
Why is the administration encouraging Americans who are evacuating or fleeing through Poland to bring proof of COVID-19 vaccination? As I understand it, Poland does not require that. So is there going to be a shift in messaging for Americans who are trying to get out through Poland?
I would check with the State Department on that. I'm happy to follow up with you for you on your behalf as well. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Jen. I want to circle back to the idea of what de-escalation would look like and how the administration would trust that it were actually real. Do you have a sense of how many troops you would need to actually see with your own eyes through satellite images or otherwise would need to withdraw in order for this administration to feel as though Putin were in fact de-escalating?
Well, I think, Kristen, that is a decision that we would make in partnership with our NATO allies, right, and European countries. And you look at everything from satellite imagery, something that many of you have access to validation and verification of what they're saying they would do. So I'm not going to be in a position, nor would I expect the Defense Department would be, to give you a troop number. But I think it would be very clear if that were a step they were taking.
And I think there have been a lot of mixed messages publicly coming out today. Among them, the NATO Secretary General said that there is cause for cautious optimism when it comes to some of these talks that are happening behind the scenes. Does the administration, does the president share that cautious optimism? Because we heard from the president very firm language.
Well, the president also conveyed it would be positive if it was verified that they pull back their troops. And certainly the openness to diplomacy is something that everybody should support, and I think our NATO allies would support as well. At the same time, we've seen this playbook before, and especially given the history of President Putin and the Russians, their history of false flag operations, of misinformation, we need to verify.
So, and I guess that's my question. Does the administration share the NATO Secretary General's cautious optimism?
I don't think we need to put in more words than what the president just conveyed in a speech to the country.
GOP senators have unveiled a sanctions bill. Have you assessed whether or not this is something the administration wants to see some movement on? Is this something that you would potentially support, given that the bipartisan talks stalled?
Not yet, because it just came out. But again, our view remains that a bipartisan effort would be the best effort moving forward. And as I conveyed to Jackie a few minutes ago, our view continues to be that the crippling sanctions package we've designed is meant to be a deterrent. Go ahead, Ken.
Jen, the Senate's working on this stopgap funding bill. The deadline is Friday. What's the level of confidence that the president will be able to sign that extension by Friday? And separately, has the administration been talking to the two Republican senators who've raised concerns, Senator Lee and Blackburn?
We are engaged with a range of Democrats and Republicans, and certainly we are hopeful that we will be able to sign this. I would note, though, that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that one of Senator Blackburn's primary concerns is about a relation to the funding of crack pipes. Is this correct?
Oh, God.
Which is not an issue. So this is an issue that what is happening here is the potential to hold up funding the government and important programs around an issue that is not an issue, because we've been very clear that we are not providing funding for crack pipes.
Oh.
And then the Senate Banking Committee had planned.
I don't know. Fox News did 24 hours on crack pipes. It seemed pretty real.
There was a holdup there. Republicans have objected to Sarah Bloom Raskin's nomination. What does the administration think of this delay? And is the administration going to provide any additional details to Senator Toomey, some of the issues that he's raised?
Well, let me first say that this is in a very extreme step that's totally irresponsible in our view. It's never been more important to have confirmed leadership at the Fed to help continue our recovery and fight inflation. And obviously they have a unique role to play, an important, a vital role to play as it relates to inflation. And I think Democrats and Republicans have agreed on that for decades. So Republicans are out there saying inflation's a problem, it's a huge issue, we agree. And then they're not even bothering to show up to even vote against these nominees to the Federal Reserve. What message is that sending to the American public? So and I would note just on Sarah Bloom Raskin, since you asked me about her as well, she's one of the most qualified individuals to ever be nominated to the Federal Reserve. She's made the strongest ethics commitments in the history of the Fed, even as she's made extensive disclosures to the Banking Committee as a natural part of the process. Senator Toomey has continued to promote false allegations that have already been shot down by ethics experts, the Kansas City Fed, the founder of the Reserve Trust, and Sarah Bloom Raskin herself. So we're going to continue to work with Chairman Brown on a path forward and look forward to the Banking Committee eventually holding a vote to commit these to confirm these 5 nominees. Go ahead.
Is there any entertaining of other options if it stalls in committee? There appears to be some question about whether the Senate as a whole can advance these nominations. Is that something you're exploring, or is that something that you don't think you have the power to do?
You mean in terms of different legislative processes or different?
There's some speculation that the full Senate could sort of skip the committee vote if it stalls out and bring them forward.
Sure.
Do you believe that the Senate has that power, or does it have to go through committee?
Our focus right now is on working with Chairman Brown on moving these nominees through the committee.
Can I ask also on COVID funding? HHS briefed Congress this week requesting $30 billion in funding. Can you give us a sense of A, can you confirm that? B, what in particular do you need this funding?
Ton of coughing in the press room today.
Sure. So HHS's briefing today or this afternoon was a part of our regular conversations with Congress about various resource needs, including what is needed for COVID response. This is important because while we continue to have sufficient funds to respond to the current Omicron surge in the coming weeks, our goal has always been to ensure that we are well prepared to stay ahead of the virus. So we've been in these ongoing conversations about what those needs might look like, and this was a part of that effort. In terms of funds that have been allocated or spent, more than 90%, so available rescue plan funds, which is where the funding has come from to date, have been obligated or allocated. 90% of that has been for purchases of vaccines and therapeutics, vaccine distribution efforts that have gotten shots and arms testing, including for schools and at other high-need locations. Resources from the rescue plan and prior COVID response bills have enabled us to respond forcefully to the Delta and Omicron surges. And what we're trying to do now is stay ahead and stay in contact with Congress about what those needs might look like.
Secretary Blinken said yesterday that the U.S. is not on pace right now to meet the president's goal, the WHO goal, of vaccinating 70% of the world by later this year. Is any of this funding aimed at jumpstarting global vaccination efforts? And can you talk a little bit about why you're not on pace? Is it, for instance, a supply problem, or is it a problem with what Secretary Blinken called last mile type stuff, getting shots and arms, to borrow language of the call?
That is an undervalued part of it, I should say. So I thank you for raising that part of it. So right now we've shipped over around 440 million doses and are continuing to aggressively share around 10 million doses a week to the world, free of charge. We're the first country to buy doses for the sole purpose of sharing them with the world. We also bought, as you know, 1 billion doses. And Secretary Blinken, I think, made those comments in part because he wants to rally the world to do more. But a big part of our effort right now, and where we have seen challenge, is turning vaccines into vaccination, which means working closely with our partners on the ground and dealing with hyperlocal issues countries may be facing to increase vaccination. And this is a big part of the focus of Ambassador Power and USAID's Global Vaccination Initiative. But part of it is that shots and arms component.
Have we started deferring their U.S. donations because the capacity is the problem more than the supply?
There have been moments, yes, where countries are not able to receive the doses that we're able to provide. Go ahead.
Thank you. Creating a gas tax holiday takes legislation.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what are other things that the president can do on his own to mitigate?
I mean, there isn't that much.
Because of Ukrainian conflict. What else can he do by himself? And in terms of releasing oil from the SPR, have you made a determination of how much cost rise that would offset? In other words, what good does it do? Yeah.
Sure. That's a good question. And those are assessments that our economic team's constantly, of course, making. We did see even the anticipation of the release back in December helped lower the price by about 10 cents. But those assessments are constantly being made. In terms of without a decision being made, which I know you're not asking, but just to be clear, there are steps the president has taken. Tapping the strategic petroleum.
Every time gas prices are brought up, shouldn't electric vehicles be brought up too in response?
World. That's something we will continue to do because clearly we need to ensure that the supply out in the global market is meeting the demand. And obviously,
encouraging other countries to produce more.
Correct. Yes, and that's been a part of our effort, even as we anticipate what impact there could be from an invasion. So, as you know, there's obviously a difference between natural gas shortages and the impact on home heating, which is largely a regional issue. But we have been still in Europe, but we've been still working with partners on that as well, but also on the supply of gas out in the market. Oil, I should say.
Man's
or
a
gas.
loser.
So go ahead.
The president said that an invasion remains distinctly possible.
Yeah.
Some senior administration officials said a couple days ago that as soon as this week. Is that still the timeline, or has anything shifted based on the kind of mixed messages of the last couple days?
We don't have a new assessment. As I think you heard the president say, there's a distinct possibility, but we don't have a new assessment of a decision being made either.
And then I know there have been internal discussions about giving a speech like the one the president gave today for some time. Why today? And then the intent behind it.
The president should really give a speech just like this one. The president gave a speech like this one. Why did he do that?
Messages to them. So why today, and why that range of messages?
Phil, I mean, you all have been covering this very closely, the potential of an invasion, our diplomatic engagements, and there's no question the American people have been consuming what you have been reporting. But I think we felt, and the president felt, it was important to be very clear and direct with the American people about what the impact could be on them, what the consequences would be, what our values are, and why it is important to stand by not just the territorial integrity and sovereignty of a country, but also stand among our allies and partners around the world. So it was very important to him to lay out very clearly what's the steps we've taken, the actions we're prepared to take, what's at stake for the United States and the world, and how this will impact us here at home.
Right.
In terms of why today, it wasn't based on, obviously, as you saw, a desire to put out new policy or based on something new internally. It was just the president's interest in feeling it was time to speak directly to the American people about all of those issues.
And then just last one, on the first point that you made there, is there concern either by the president or inside the White House that perhaps the understanding or support for kind of traditional Western alliances that have been a pillar of the last 80 years is waning or doesn't exist to the degree that it used to?
I think, Phil, yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't have any data assessment of that, but we also are fully aware of the fact that right now the American people are still grappling with a pandemic. They're grappling with rising costs, two big issues the president speaks to quite frequently. And it was important to him to be able to lay out clearly for them what this potential conflict, potential invasion in a place that may feel far away and how that could impact them, and his engagement. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. President Biden today said there's 150,000 Russian troops encircling Ukraine. That appeared to be a higher number than previously reported. I think 130,000 is how most recently we've seen it characterized. So is the president confirming an actual escalation of Russian troops, or why did he present a new number there?
Well, I think over the last dozen days or so, we've seen a dramatic acceleration and buildup of troops. And so the president said in his remarks very carefully, it's encircling Ukraine on the border and also in Belarus. And so I think he felt it was important to give an assessment of where things stand.
Secondly, regarding a gas tax holiday, you said, quote, all options remain on the table. There is right now a bill from...
Is the gas tax holiday just like on one day if you buy gas, there's no tax? I mean, is it really that simple that that's what they mean?
We haven't made any decision about additional steps at this point in time. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Two questions. As you mentioned earlier, Vice President Harris is headed to the Munich Security Conference this week. Does the president plan to also send Secretary Blinken? And if so, would a last-minute addition suggest a different or perhaps reduced or more limited role for Vice President Harris at that conference?
I don't think there's any plans to limit or reduce the vice president's role at the Munich Security Conference or at the global stage. On a global stage, she's going to give a speech while she's there, and she is a vital and important representative for the United States and our values and our intentions at this point in the world. But in terms of plans for Secretary Blinken to attend or not, I can check with the State Department and see. There are plenty of leaders to meet with, so more bandwidth.
On a different note, the president continues to talk about his Build Back Better plan. He did so today, did a couple of events last week. What is the White House expectation at this point about the future of that plan? Is there any evidence of any sort of forward movement, forward progress, even on a pared back version of that? There doesn't seem to be a lot of optimism or action right now on Capitol Hill, but can you talk about what the White House expectation is for that and why the president continues to bring this up?
Well, the president continues to bring it up.
It's constant coughing in that room. You guys noticing that?
People experience in their daily lives as rising costs. One of the ways that we can address that is by passing legislation that will help lower costs for Americans, whether it's child care or health care or the cost of prescription drugs. And we can do that and fully pay for it by making the tax system more fair. So what is encouraging to the president is that there is broad support for lowering costs for the American people in all of those categories and for making the tax system more fair. And we are continuing to work in lockstep and in partnership with a range of senators, and they're having their own discussions about moving these efforts forward. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jen. One question on Asian Americans and one question on Ukraine. On Asian Americans, actually, the Team USA gold medal winner, Chloe Kim, revealed as an Asian American. according to AP, quote, "She was tormented online daily. She said she was consumed by the fear that her parents could be killed whenever she heard the news about another brutal assault on an Asian person," unquote. Actually, under President Biden's watch in 2021, the anti-Asian hate crimes increased by 339%. It seems we don't see much action taken by the White House, and even in a press briefing, the very last time you mentioned about Asian Americans was last May. So will the president take some action or even just record a video like what he did last year to raise the awareness?
Well, let me say first that Chloe Kim, I'm obsessed with the Olympics, so I'm just going to give you a little biography here, but she's 21 years old, and she made those comments, which is incredibly courageous and brave that she spoke out about the fear she had, the fear she has for her family members. And she's not the only Asian American to do that, but she is somebody who is now a double gold medalist, amazing. And so I just want to take a moment to applaud her for her courage in doing that. I will say that the president has put in place a task force. He has hired a senior level staffer to be a representative and be someone who can speak to these threats and these concerns and these fears felt by the Asian American community, because there's a number of steps we need to take and continue to take to address. And we've seen this rise, unfortunately, because of hate-filled rhetoric and language around the origins of the pandemic. And that is something that Asian Americans across the country have been feeling. So I can just reiterate for you that the president is absolutely committed to continuing to speak out, to crack down, to take steps, and again would thank Chloe Kim for her courage. Go ahead, Anna. I just have to keep going because we got to...
On Ukraine, Jen, President Biden said that we should give diplomacy every chance to succeed. Secretary Blinken, after his call with Foreign Minister Lavrov, said that
there's a degree to which this is like when I take live calls where a bunch of people plan to ask the exact same question, but then nobody has a backup. So like they're asking versions of the exact same questions on Ukraine.
Well, what's the alternative if we don't leave the window to diplomacy open? Right? I mean, you know, our objective, obviously, as you heard the president say today, there is no threat the United States is posing to Russia, to the Russian people. There's no threat that Ukraine is posing to Russia. What we're working to do here is leave a forum for de-escalation and prevent a war. And so to us, the door to diplomacy should always be open, and we should always look for opportunities to de-escalate.
concern this turns into like a frozen conflict, basically, where troops just stay on the border and there's no invasion, but also no pullback?
Well, again, there's going to have to be a continued dialogue and discussion, but Russia not invading Ukraine and not risking and impacting the lives of many, many people in that country, including potentially American citizens, would certainly be a step we would welcome.
What Americans should prepare for, you mentioned the threat of cyber attacks. The president mentioned that as well. And we know Homeland Security has previously mentioned they've seen an uptick in scanning on U.S. critical infrastructure and so on. Should Americans be prepared for a potential Russian cyber attack on critical U.S. infrastructure or other networks?
Well, I would say even before we've been discussing the buildup of troops at the border, and even before we've been discussing the bellicose rhetoric, we have seen an uptick in cyber activity by malicious actors around the world, either those living in countries or the countries themselves. And so that is something, I don't have any new threat or new warning to pose today, but that is something we have certainly been amping and increasing our focus on as a threat that's emerging, but has been the case for the last several years.
Can you take the question on Africa?
Yeah, 1 second, go ahead, and then I'll go to you.
Jen, just this hour, lawmakers put out a bipartisan statement warning President Putin. I know you've said from the podium that the White House doesn't need Congress to pass a sanctions package to implement your own sanctions package, but wouldn't it have sent a stronger message if there had been an agreement reached? What message do you think it sends to Putin that all we got out of Congress was a statement?
I think President Putin knows very clearly, because he's heard it directly from President Biden's mouth, that if he invades Ukraine, that there will be crippling sanctions, and we don't need Congress to act in order to do that.
And when will the president make a decision on any new energy policies to impact prices at the pump? Because even without an invasion, prices have risen
beyond where they were before the emergency reserve release back in November.
You're right, and the president is very focused on making sure we're doing everything we can to lower the cost for Americans in any way it hits them, whether it's prices at the pump or when you go buy a pound of meat or wherever it may be. So we're continuing to assess, and he's continuing to look at options. I don't have a prediction of any decision, though. Go ahead. I'll go to you after, Simon. Go ahead.
Switching topics entirely, the president is headed later this week to Ohio. He said that he'd like to be out in communities with people more frequently. How often would he like to be out there per week? What do you guys ramp
Every day?
Well, but when he says that, what is your anticipation? Is he looking to travel 2-3 days a week? And when would we expect that to ramp up?
Right.
You know, I think you can expect that to increase around the State of the Union and after. I think we are constrained by a couple of things, including the CR funding, but also the fact that there is a whole lot going on in the world. Even though he can be president anywhere, he also has a responsibility to sometimes be in the White House, or oftentimes be in the White House. But he's looking forward to getting out there more in the coming weeks.
Does he have anywhere specific that he hasn't been yet, or places that he hasn't been, like he feels frequently enough that he'd really like to get back to?
Oh my God.
Good question. I would venture to guess that he has probably been nearly everywhere, given he ran for president a couple times and vice president. As president, I don't have any prediction of states or readout of states that he's looking forward to going to, but
yeah, who cares?
Traveling around the country, blue states, red states, across the gamut. Go ahead. Okay, Simon, I'll go to you. Go ahead, Simon.
Okay, thank you. It's been 3 months, so if you can allow me to ask 2 questions. The president spoke with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia on January 10th. It's been almost a month now, more than a month since that call took place. And the WHO yesterday released a statement saying that they still don't have access to the Tigray region for humanitarian access because the government is not allowing them to have fuel. So is the president still interested in anything else apart from Ukraine?
Of course he is.
This guy always asks pretty aggressive questions, I've noticed.
World, and he is responsible for not just what's happening,
which is fine,
also what's happening domestically. Let me give you an update or a comment from here. We're hopeful that recent steps taken by the government of Ethiopia and other actors might open a path to resolving the conflict. Over the last month, the Prime Minister has taken steps to promote dialogue, release political prisoners, and enable expanded delivery of medical supplies in the Tigray region. We continue to have serious concerns about the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia, and we are focused on working with all parties to end the source of the suffering, the military conflict. Go ahead, Karen.
President Zielinski tomorrow is calling for a day of unity, a national holiday tomorrow in Ukraine. His message for the last couple of days, if not longer, has been don't panic to Ukrainians. Does the administration have concerns that Zielinski and Ukrainian leaders have not adequately prepared the Ukrainian people for a Russian invasion?
Well, I'm not going to speak to that. What I can speak to is what we feel our role and responsibility is, which is to provide a range of information about what we see at the border, what we see Russia preparing, and our assessment of what impact that could be. Every leader makes their own decisions.
And do you have an update on the humanitarian assistance that the U.S. is talking with European allies? Should that happen and the Ukrainian people need that?
Sure. I know Secretary Blinken made an announcement, I believe it was yesterday, about additional assistance. Let me just see if I have any more details on it in here, and if not, I will get that to you shortly after the briefing. Karen, let me just see. Let's see here. Let me get you, I can get you, let's see, we just announced, a sovereign loan guarantee to Ukraine of up to $1 billion to bolster Ukraine's economy amidst pressure resulting from Russia's military buildup. This builds on the $3 billion in sovereign loan guarantees we issued to Ukraine between 2014 and 2016. We've also committed more security assistance to Ukraine in the last year than at any point in history, $650 million. And we also announced we're launching a new partnership fund for a resilient Ukraine with our with our allies and partners to continue to expand on that. The last thing is the Export-Import Bank has made available $3 billion in support for projects in Ukraine, and the Development Finance Corporation has a current investment portfolio in Ukraine of approximately $800 million across more than a dozen projects. So we've obviously provided a range of assistance, which we will continue to build on. Go ahead.
Jen, will Vice President Harris be meeting with President Zielinski when she's in Munich?
I don't have anything on her planned meetings at this point in time. I expect we'll have more as we get a little bit closer, and I expect they'll do a preview call from her team as well.
And then an Olympics question.
Yeah.
Does the administration have any reaction to the IOC's decision to allow Russian figure skater, and I butcher her name, Kamila Valieva,
Crazy.
to continue competing in the Olympics after her doping scandal?
Insane.
Well, I would point you to the statement made by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, who opposed the decision made in Beijing, saying it, quote, appears to be another chapter in the systemic and pervasive disregard for clean sport by Russia. But these were independent decisions made by the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency and Court of Arbitration for Sport. We don't have any additional comment from here. I would point you again to the U.S. Olympic Committee. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the U.S. Energy Information Administration shows data that Russian oil being imported in the U.S. has been increasing over the past year. In May of 2021, it was the most on record. Now, the president said he wants to use all tools to keep gas prices down. Is he looking at temporary things to keep gas prices down should there be a Russian invasion? Or is there any consideration to reversing some of the policies and going back to increasing U.S. energy independence?
I don't have anything to detail for you, in terms of what he is considering, but our overarching objective is to decrease the impact on American consumers and increase the impact on Russian leaders.
Well, you talked about the boycott on the Republicans of the Fed nominees. Does the White House support allowing 4 of the 5 nominees to go through and then dealing with Sarah Raskin later?
Again, we are working with Chairman Brown to move all 5 nominees forward. Go ahead, right there. Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Do you have any update on maybe steps the White House is taking in the event that the trucker protesting in Canada heads to the U.S. and also especially to D.C. around the time of the State of the Union?
Good question.
Well, our Department of Homeland Security team has been assessing, and I gave an update last week that they also increased support, federal support around the Super Bowl. When there were those reports, I would note the Super Bowl did move forward, and there was no halting of that, so that is a positive development as well. But we are constantly assessing any impact.
For people asking me to speak to Destiny, I did just reach out to him on Discord, and he says he's been playing a lot of games, so he doesn't know if he's caught up. And I was like, oh, I just wanted to check in about how things were going in Miami, but he doesn't seem to want to be on, unfortunately.
Late last year. Has he at all reviewed the report yet and taken a position on it?
It wasn't, I would just remind everyone, it wasn't recommendations. It was a broad assessment from across the gambit of scholars from all ends of the political spectrum who were looking at a range of historic issues as it relates to the court. The president has been reviewing that, but I don't have anything to read out for you on that front.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was about voting rights. The president signed this expansive executive order a year ago on voting. I believe Susan Rice put out an update on it in September or October. Could you provide an update on what agencies are doing? We're going to start beginning seeing elections as soon as next month. I believe that's in Texas, but other states are going to start to have them.
Yes, I do have a lot on this, not in front of...
Is that Ryan Grimm in the press briefing room? What happened to him? I caught a couple clips of the Hill Rising thing now. And it's crazy what has happened over there. Like, it's so obviously absurd. And it's just, who is watching that stuff?
But if you look at past examples where I think it was back in the 90s, where if you went to the DMV to renew your driver's license, they would offer you the opportunity to register to vote, stuff like that. But let me see if we can get you something and anyone else who's interested after the briefing. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. One on China, one on Afghanistan. First of all, China's
Well, I guess they're not calling on Ryan Grimm, huh?
of U.S. rhetoric on the Russia-Ukraine crisis, calling it hyping up the possibility of warfare, saying the U.S. is clamoring for bloc confrontation. What does the White House make of this rhetoric? Are you going to take any action against it, either through talk or other means? And what do you make of this closeness between Moscow and Beijing?
Well, I would say that the meeting that they had a couple of weeks ago reflects an approach both countries have already taken for some time, which is to move closer together. We know, and we've said before, but China's not in a position to compensate Russia for their economic losses, and we have tools to deploy if we see foreign companies, including those in China, trying to backfill sanctions. I would say our overarching view, though, is that if Russia chooses to move forward, it will cost China and how it's viewed in the eyes of Europe and the world. And that's something for them to assess. We are trying to prevent a war here. That is why we are putting information out and why we are engaging with the global community.
Wow.
How do you respond to Afghans who are critical of the executive order that proposes to split the frozen Afghan money? They say that they weren't involved in the 9/11 attacks, so why are they getting less of these funds that they're entitled to?
Well, I would say that first, let me start with the fact that this is one step in the process. No funds can be transferred until the courts make a ruling. What the president was trying to do was enable certain U.S.-based assets belonging to Afghanistan's central bank to be used to benefit the Afghan people. Otherwise, it would have been held, right? And that money wouldn't have been going. And so that's why we saw it, and he took a proactive step to facilitate access to $3.5 billion of those assets for the benefit of the Afghan people and Afghanistan's future. More than, as you know, many U.S. victims of terrorism, including the relatives of victims who died in the September 11th terrorist attacks, have brought claims against the Taliban and are pursuing these assets in federal court. So more than $5.5 billion in assets are going to remain in the United States and are subject to the ongoing litigation. But what I think it's important for people to know and understand is he took this proactive step to sign the executive order in an effort to try to provide some of this funding to the Afghan people.
When will that happen?
The courts have to rule in order for it to happen.
$3.5 billion.
Right. The courts have to rule in order for any of the funding to move forward, I believe is my understanding.
How's that proactive then?
He's making clear that he believes that half of the funding should go to the Afghan people for humanitarian purposes. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jen. Will President Biden meet in person with the Russian president?
I think I answered that question a little bit earlier.
Man, just the same questions being asked multiple times, which is kind of weird. Let me see here. People asking about moderating. You can email info@davidpakman.com about that. Let's listen to a couple of voicemails because I just have so many. Let's see if we can hit a few of the highlights. Here's Whitney.
So I took another look at the Enneagrams and I realized that only the Enneagram that's described as the third right goes in a...
Okay, Eric from Mass.
Hey, David, Eric from Mass. There's not going to be any advertisement or sponsorship if you don't tell everybody that you walked them right into getting AIDS.
The vaccine does not cause AIDS, and our sponsorships are doing just fine. I want to say thank you to Trisha Northstar, Grandpa Simpson, Youngest, Milo Wild, and Wookie Jack for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. Also, thanks to Luke Martin for signing up on my website with the coupon code OBAMNA. OBAMNA! Your new member number 21. Let's continue with voicemails.
Hi, David. Thank you for your show. I just listened to the segment regarding the milestones for when we should stop mask mandates. And I just wanted to add that I think it would be helpful to include the fact that children under 5 are not yet vaccinated as a potential milestone or just conversation. I'm aware that those children getting the virus are also less likely to have severe disease.
Absolutely true. The cat is out of the bag. The horse is out of the stables. You can't unring a bell. The genie is out of the bottle. The mask mandates are dropping, and there's nothing I can say to change it. The mask mandates are dropping. It's just very clear that that's the direction things are going.
So I found Islamic philosophy and Islamic theology in the Myers-Briggs as INFJ.
I have not found that. Here's Eric from Mass again.
Hey, David, it's Eric from Mass. I just want to know if you have a comment. Reuters endorses ivermectin.
Reuters is not a medical organization. It's not true that Reuters has endorsed ivermectin, but Reuters is a news organization. Let's go now to Billy Harrison.
Hello, Mr. David Pakman. My name is Billy Harrison. I am a Republican, and I support Donald Trump to the fullest. And I bet you can give me your information, whatever. I bet you $100, $1,000, whatever you want to bet that you will not answer these questions on your YouTube channel,
Okay.
replying back, proving the questions that I'm about to ask you.
Bring it on.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm ready.
First of all, I watch you when you do the live Donald Trump bingo shit. Okay, you think you're making a point. So
No, I'm not. It's just fun. The bingo thing is just fun. We're just having a good time. That's all it is.
little fan club and your little Democratic colleague, because he says some of the things he says in his old rallies, that's not a big deal. But you don't, for some reason, whenever he says, I've had the lowest black unemployment, the booming economy, lowest unemployment out of really every race, good trade deals.
What's the question, dude? Like, there's not even a question there. It's crazy. All right, let's go back to Whitney.
I have a book recommendation for you. It's called The Cosmic Serpent.
Not interested. Let's go to Eric from Mass.
Hey, David, Eric from Mass. I just want to know if you had a comment on the Pentagon research papers that were released on the vaccines proving that graphene oxide is in them.
Okay, that also didn't happen. Let's go back to Whitney.
So, what I don't understand is...
Whoops. Okay, and that one got cut off. Another one from Whitney.
So I also looked up what people found like to be entertaining as far as like selfless or thankful people.
Right. Here's Troy York.
Basically, Tulsi Gabbard is correct.
Okay, that's I'm gonna nope right out of there. Back to Whitney.
I am so excited about Meghan and Harry maybe moving to California.
Okay, back to Eric from Mass.
Hey, David, it's Eric from Mass. Just wondering how come you haven't warned everybody about AIDS and the vaccine.
The vaccine does not cause AIDS. Back to Troy York.
Hello, David Packman. I couldn't help to notice that.
Okay, can barely audible. Let's try another one.
Oh, and this is Cecil Brewster calling back.
Okay, another fake name, Cecil Brewster.
Mr. Packman, one thing I have to agree with you. The caller you had about Joe Rogan on a recent video. No vineyard owning elite snob is going to talk any sense into Joe Rogan, nor will most of Joe Rogan's fans, which I am included and which are growing.
Man, I don't know what he's talking about. Back to Whitney.
So if the person who thought that like feelings should dictate somebody's life
right
was hailing a country like Iran, being like that's the smarter individuals.
Okay, back to Billy Harrison.
David Pac-Man. Pretty sure you know who this is. Me and you, man. Debate. Live. On your show. I done gave you my number. Email. Your audience wants to see it. I've read the comments.
Yeah, call in anytime. Okay, I told you. Back to Troy York.
David Packman. The Democrat Party is the mafia party.
Okay, and then back to Whitney. Oh, blank voicemail from Whitney. It's all day like this. Here's another one.
So what I noticed that is the government started like joining in on some of like the newcomers that came in here, and instead of like raising red flags that like our country doesn't want people like hard workers and stuff, they're starting to gang up with like our fathers and mothers.
Okay. Do you guys want one more Billy Harrison or are we done? What do you guys think? One more Billy Harrison or just call it on voicemails? I don't know. One more? Okay, here's one more Billy Harrison.
David Pac-Man, this is Billy Harrison again, the chaotic caller, as you called me. I really didn't appreciate that too much.
Hey, by the way, guys, for people thinking I'm going to run out, I have 839 fresh voicemails for you guys. 839.
Because I'm a man's man. I know you don't know what that is. Pretty sure your Democratic friends laugh at that. I don't care. But that was my 4-month-old cooing in the background. Not my I have a 2-year-old as well. He was probably playing. The kids do. It's what they do.
Right.
Another thing, like I said, me and you live debate on your show. Facts.
It's funny, like the people most desperate to debate don't understand, like a debate isn't you just call in and insult me. A debate would be like, okay, I believe vaccines cause COVID. You believe they don't. Let's cite sources. You know what? Like they don't even understand what it means to debate, you know? He just wants to call and go, oh, wait, but when you do the Trump bingo, it's bad. It's like, okay, it's not really a debate, you know? It's very, very strange. All right. I want to say thank you to ASF Klops, Chief Boris, Greater Candle, Bowflex Man for the Twitch Prime subscriptions, putting us at 25. And also Vincent Jenner, who just signed up on my website using the coupon code OBAMNA.
Obama, and we will ban men.
That will do it for today's stream. We will be back later this week, and we will be live with the Joe Biden State of the Union address. It's going to be a very strong stream, long and wide, I would say. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Don't do anything I wouldn't do in the meantime.